Welcome to Relative Insights. Our mission is for all people to access transformational and educational resources in the field of mental health and emotional wellness. Doris and Jennifer discuss current issues and approaches to living a life of hope and fulfillment. This podcast is not a replacement for therapy. The conversations, guests, tips discussed are provided as educational, thought-provoking, and inspiring. Our opinions are not specific therapeutic advice. Views expressed are our own personal perspectives and experiences. Information heard here is to be used at your caution and discretion. As always, please seek out individual mental health care to best serve you.
Hi.
Hey. I'm so excited for this episode. Today we're talking about suicide and mental health.
Yes.
This is a personal this feels personal because I don't know anyone who hasn't been touched or known someone by somebody who has attempted or committed suicide.
Exactly.
And especially during the pandemic, there was a lot of talk about rates of suicide increasing and, what's actually happening out there. And we're seeing a lot just in this beginning of this year with a lot of brothers and sisters completing suicide. And so
I think just in the past month too, like celebs, like it's in the news, and we're thinking that this is a topic that we really need to talk about and address because I know for me personally, I just still feel like there are just a lot of us who aren't taking it as seriously. And I don't know if it's because there are times where people are just like, oh my gosh, I just want to kill myself. And, there's like, oh, they're just saying that. They don't really mean that. When in actuality, like people are literally taking their lives every day.
And then we also want to talk about maybe the shame and stigma around asking for help. But, why don't we dive into the statistics to just kind of get a clear picture of what's going on right now, how it's affecting different communities, and maybe even on a global perspective as well, not just national.
I think it's important to talk about the numbers because I feel like when we hear the numbers, it's almost like a shock value. It helps us to realize that this is not just one case here, one case there. Like this is something that's impacting us as a people, like on a global and a huge, like almost like a pandemic level. Like I know I'm not allowed to really call it a pandemic,
no. But look at the no. We're at historically high numbers, so that's not an exaggeration. And you hear about heart disease, you hear about homicides in the news, and there's also that complication about suicides and like it being like the second cause of death in young populations from like 10 to 14, 15 to 24. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think, and up till 35. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the CDC reported like it's the second leading cause of death among people ages 10 to 24. And it's been increasing every year since 2007. So for the past like decade and more, children and teens have been taking their own lives at alarming rates. And I think it was USA Today said, and I think they got this from the WHO, but they said that the rate of suicide among those aged 10 to 24 has increased nearly 60% between 2007 and 2018. And I did pull up some stats on the states, and I don't know why I was kind of shocked, but like New Hampshire had the highest rate of suicide deaths ages 10 to 24. And this is from between 2007 to 2018.
Wow.
And then it kind of
I
goes
would have
down.
thought it would have been Alaska.
Yeah, and I did read something that said it was Alaska, but I think, let me see, where did I see Alaska?
Maybe they sometimes maybe it changes based on numbers versus
Yeah, Alaska was
per
down
capita.
to 31 point. They were way down. But again, I think that it's higher. Alaska rates are higher among adults, because I did read that somewhere. But between this age group of 10 to 24, they're much, much lower. Oregon was next, and then Georgia. And that kind of hit me, because I'm like, that's where I am. Georgia was 76.3% increase among persons aged 10 to 24 since 2007 to 2018.
So maybe
do you have
that's
the
it.
stats on adults from Alaska?
I do. You know what? I don't have you know what the distinction is? What you brought up? It's about rate of increase, that these rates are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
I think that Alaska probably is still high. It's just stable. It's not going up.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think what did it say? Yeah, states with the highest suicide rates for that period of 2007 until 2018 were South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and New Mexico. And then the lowest were New Jersey, Rhode Island, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts.
You know, I also want to add that you mentioned that it was a second leading cause of death among young people. Even in middle-aged, it's the top four. It's the fourth leading cause for ages 35 to 44. It's the fifth leading cause for age group 45 to 54. And then from 55 to 64, it's the eighth leading cause of death. And that's according to the National Institute of Mental Health back in 2019. Which they pulled from the CDC. So this is in the top 10 for almost all age groups. There should be signs everywhere about tips.
My goodness.
And
yes.
There
should be
telling people you are not alone. Yeah.
And I do see, some things here and there, like on movies, where it's like if they brought up suicide, it's like at the end, it'll scroll up like, hey, but, are we reaching the masses? I really don't think so. Are we reaching the communities that need this information the most and need access to this the most? I really don't think so. America's health ranking said that, and I know I was like, oh, it's pandemic, but they say they actually, have said that it's a serious public health problem among all age groups, not just the youth, but that the youth is exacted an enormous toll due to the significant years of potential life loss, because it's when it happens to someone so young, it's like all those years are gone. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like
Mhm.
that kind of takes me back while I was doing my research, like, and I don't know why it was so like it was heart-wrenching to me, but it was also shocking. And being in this field for so long, you would think that maybe that was something I was aware of, but it was like a 7-year-old. I read about a 7-year-old taking his life, a young Black boy, like being bullied at school, a 10-year-old Black boy taking his life from being bullied at school. And I was just like, gosh, and it made me really think about, like, I have a 7-year-old, I
Yeah.
have a 10-year-old, and I'm just like, I can't imagine my child, feeling so hopeless, so helpless that they want to take their own life.
Not only that, it blows my mind to hear of 7 and 10-year-olds and thinking,
Yes.
how do they even have the ability to get to have access and means to
Yes.
carry it out and to carry it out completely?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh, you'd be surprised how many households, carry weapons, carry guns,
mm,
and that these
mm,
kids know about it. I think in both
mm,
of those, yeah, I'm positive in both of those situations, there was, they shot themselves.
mm.
Because I remember reading the mom saying, like, I came home. So like one of the articles, the mom was saying that she knows her son shot. I think it was a 7-year-old. The police really did not want to write it up as suicide, so they wrote it up as accidental death. And that also
Oh,
made me think about just how correct the stats are. If these cops are writing up accidental deaths for these younger, kids that are taking their lives, and mom was like, I know he took his life. Like he said, he left a
oh.
note.
Do you know
He
what?
said,
Just to let you know, that affects the stats because guess what?
yep,
Number 1 leading cause of death for, the age group, again, of young people is
mhm,
unintentional injury.
yep, yep.
Wow.
So it's
Wow,
like
I
you
had
have to
no
take that
idea.
into consideration too. Because yeah, and this mom was fighting. She was like, look, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I don't want people running around saying this is an accidental shooting. My baby wasn't playing with the gun. He was being bullied at school. He was miserable, and she said, I was literally in the midst of signing him up for some type of therapy, she said.
Mm,
And before she could even finish it, he taken his life.
mm,
I think it also said, I don't know why this was important for them to say this, but I was just kind of like, really? They were like, the cost of suicide attempts in the US in 2019 was estimated at $70 billion. I think it is important for us to talk about the attempts because, for females, like females tend to commit suicide or attempt suicide differently than males. So
mhm,
the stats do say that, you know, women have a higher rate of attempts than males.
mhm,
So the male, suicide rate is a bit higher, but again, these attempts, these are important because
mhm.
again, people are trying to take their lives. They
Yeah.
weren't I'm thankful that they weren't successful at it, but and so it begs the question, why? Why? Why are they all trying to take their lives? Why aren't any of these people able to access the help they need, get the help they need, whatever have you, especially youth, right? Which
Mhm.
turns back to parents, us as parents, like, being aware of the signs, which we will talk about a little bit later,
But
and take it
it's not
serious.
even just the parents too. It's like parents or any adult in their life. Like,
Yes. And
and
friends, your
yes,
peers.
that goes into the risk factors or warning signs of
Mhm.
isolation, the
Yes.
feelings of isolation. And so, oh,
Which this COVID, this
yeah,
pandemic has brought out tenfold, because
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
especially when, Even when I think back on it, like, the kids having to do school online, like, I know for my kids personally, like my oldest, he enjoys going to school. And I just noticed a change in his attitude and his behavior when he had to stay home and do school online. Like
Mm,
he felt very isolated. He couldn't see his friends. Like we're talking about taking kids from like hanging out with their friends on a daily basis, being a part of extracurricular activities, which helps elevate your mood, just and the socialization piece too helps elevate your mood. Just being able to just live freely, all that was taken away from them just like that. And so
yeah.
it's like, okay, I get so tired of hearing people say, oh, kids are resilient. How many times are we going to say that without
You know,
acknowledging that there are people too?
that just brings to mind something that I read, and I love this book so much, and I bring it up about racialized trauma. But in that book, they talk about resilience, and it's misguided and assuming, like, whoa, you could do anything to kids and they'll bounce back. You alone can, have resilience and survive. But what ends up happening is resilience happens within the context of a community, not in isolation. It's never in isolation.
Exactly.
Where do you want to go to from here?
I did want to just bring this up, and I know this is not particularly talking about youth, but when I read it, I was like, wow, like hadn't even thought about that. But I read that more than 20% of essential workers reported suicide thoughts.
Mm.
I thought that was actually important to mention because again, like this COVID pandemic, like what it has done to people. And like, I would venture to even say like it is a trauma, what people have been put through, especially like essential workers. And who did they have to turn to? I will say like a lot of the clients that I ended up getting during COVID were essential workers. And I was grateful that they were able to, number one, financially, afford that because it's, I won't lie, like therapy is not super cheap, so the fact that but I felt like this should have been something that was freely offered to every single one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they had nowhere to go, no one to talk to about what was going on. And the things that I have heard, my goodness, like, oh God, it broke my heart. I was just like, I mean, they were just treated like, I won't even go into it, but yeah, like it was, I had, it's no reason why they were feeling as hopeless and as helpless as they were.
That's the thing, too. Those essential workers seem like they were comprised mainly of Black and brown folk. And also, it also depends on socioeconomic status. Like people of a higher socioeconomic status could work from home. And so you'll hear from them like, whoa, maybe it was a mixed blessing. Or, I got time to reconnect with my kids or such and such. Or, it was stressful. But other people had to be out and work in the pandemic and they were being exposed. And like, I remember, yeah, I'm going off on the pandemic. I just know that there wasn't the same protection for essential workers, like, say, janitors working in hospitals, people that are overlooked. And have PPE, I don't know. But I just can't imagine what they had to go through and the fear and getting out and getting up and leaving their house every day. And,
I mean, it's hard to talk about this topic and not bring up COVID, not talk about essential workers and what they experience. I think I forgot to mention earlier that the suicide rate among Black youth
Mhm.
has always trailed that of like Asians and whites.
Mhm.
And it has actually doubled since 2014. And, I was reading that, it's, with it rising since, already rising faster than that of white teens. I was reading that, and I thought it was interesting that they called them quarantines, but they were saying now quarantines of color have to deal
Mhm.
with the disproportionate COVID-19 death toll in Black communities, social isolation, and, vicarious trauma of police violence, which is just all these conditions have been weakened due to the pandemic. And they talked about the 16-year-old um, Black young male who attempted to kill himself with a knife. And he
Mm.
was saying like he didn't want to be there anymore. And he couldn't even get admitted to the hospital for inpatient because of the COVID-19 pandemic, like because they had way too many patients in there for COVID-19. So it's just
Oh.
like this to them, this wasn't a priority. Like, are you suffering from COVID-19? Then you have to go somewhere else.
Oh.
And they were saying in the article that, and this was USA Today also, but they were saying in the article that fewer than 5 clients have been hospitalized since the start of the pandemic because of suicide, and that this is also because people are underreporting and avoiding hospitals because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's not that they're not experiencing, this feelings of hopelessness, these suicidal ideations. They're just like, okay, well, I don't want to get COVID, so I'm just going to sit here and try to ride it out, or I'm not even going to
Mhm.
say anything because I don't want to be admitted. But I do want to say, like, since we were kind of talking about Black youth or the Black communities, one of the main reasons why I was hoping, why we wanted to talk about this today was, just the sheer number of, I guess you would just say celebrities because, they're more well known, but the number of celebrities taking their lives, Black,
Mm.
fair, I would say pretty fairly young. The mayor of Hyattsville, Kevin Ward, 44 years old, took his life. Former Miss USA, Chesley Chris, 30. Walking Dead star Moses Mosley, 31. Now they're still investigating that, but for what they're saying is that it all points to self-inflicted. And Ian Alexander Jr., 26, son of Regina. Oh God, I love her so much. The actress, like my heart just broke
Mhm.
for her so hard when I read that story. I just kept reading and reading, what was going on. Like, even as a therapist, I'm sitting here like going back through pictures and looking at like his
I
post and
know.
thinking
There is
like
no.
yeah,
Yeah.
like why, why? Like he was just
That's
about to
the.
release an album. Like, you know, yeah. Back to the why. Why is this
She's
happening?
a. Yeah.
And I think which goes into what you were talking about, starting to talk about earlier about the stigma.
Mhm. The stigma. Also, I think in our community, we hold so much pain and think that we have to hold it by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
and
I almost said, wow.
I was gonna say, well, listen, you should have, because guess what I was thinking? I was like, where are communities? The
Yes.
only one was, the historical community was the Black church
Mm-hmm.
for resource and help and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's changing too in our society. And so we have to build new communities
Mm.
wherever it may be, whether it be church, whether it be secular, whether it be out in nature. whether it be through physical exercise or just a group where you can talk and it is safe, so that you know that you are not alone. Because every time I run into people in the mental health or self-help world, we always tend to have similar stories and grief. And when do we have time? When do we ever set aside time to even go into it?
Thank you. And when we
Let
do
alone,
that,
yeah.
what happens? Oh, you'll be fine. Oh, just suck it up. Oh, that's not a big deal. Like, and what does that make you want to do? Shut down.
Yeah.
It's like,
And,
well, they said I should just get over it, so I should just get over it.
and when you see someone who has struggles and you say, hey, maybe have you ever considered? Some people might be like, nah, I don't trust anyone. I keep it to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, somebody's like, why don't you write in a journal? No, because somebody might read it. And it's like, what? You can't even write it down?
I don't need a
Because
therapist.
of
I'm not crazy.
mistrust?
Like, what are you talking about? That's not having feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. What that has nothing to do with being quote unquote crazy. We all need support. We all need help from time to time, and it's okay to say I'm not okay. You mentioned, and I'm not familiar with, you mentioned someone.
Yeah. This past year, don't even get me started. When people do ask for help in the professional, in the professional athletic realm, there's just this pressure of, speaking of like, you should get over it. It's like, really? I think of Naomi Osaka, who was at the French Open and bowed out.
Yeah.
And they were like, and she was like trying to work with the organization, and they were going to penalize her financially for not showing up, as if it's like, you're just a commodity. We don't care. We're going to squeeze out whatever we can to get what we want from you. We don't care about your mental health. You need to perform. The coverage in the news media at first was a little sketch. And when it came to the public eye about how the French Open was handling it, then like all of a sudden the French Open also started kind of backtracking and being like, oh, well, we support her and blah, 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 blah. This is just part of our policy.
Pardon my language, but bullshit. You got caught up, got caught with your pants down. Now you're trying to, and I Jen, because, I hate to, I don't want to bring race into this, but,
oh, yes.
If she was a different, and I don't know a lot about her, but I do know she's not white. And that just makes me question, like, if she had been, I don't even know any of the white, like, Anna Kournikova, is that one of the, I don't even know. But, like, had she been, someone of not a minority group.
Yes. She's mixed. She has a Haitian father and a Japanese mother.
Okay. So she is not of the Caucasian race. Okay. Yes. And again, I'm not trying to make this about race, but
I think it's in the public eye. I think race and the public eye are all a part of it, because it's almost like they scoffed. I feel like they almost scoffed, like,
because we're still not looked at as human. I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to have feelings and emotions and go through things, like,
and we're supposed to be tough and like super thick skin, emotionally and physically, like literally in the medical field. They literally, I read this in a book. And I wish I had it. According to science, If you believe in books, you should believe me. Again, it's in Racialized Trauma, Grandmother's Hands,
Mm.
Resma. He talks about medical doctors literally thinking residents, those in study, they were surveyed, and they had the preconceived notion that Black people had thicker skin. And so,
I don't know if I read it in that book that you recommend, but I have heard that before. That like, yeah, they really view us like we're not the same.
you can do whatever you want to them. They don't handle it. And I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
tell you, this is an aside. I feel bad whenever I go into a doctor's office or I'm having some type of medical treatment or I'm going to a dentist because I am very tough. I am tough. And I'm like, ugh. And I crack jokes and I'm fine with it. But I'm like, I don't want to send the wrong message where they feel like that everyone, this is only me.
That's unfair to you too. It's like I
It
can't even
is.
just be myself without, having to act a certain way so that I don't, feed into their stereotypes.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, there's only one here at this dentist office, or, and so I would hate for it to be a generalized, oh, you're a lot more sensitive than the other Black person I saw. So, yeah, it's.
God, that's what makes me feel like there are so many variables behind why, people in the Black community just don't reach out for help, are hesitant to reach out for help when they know that their life could be on the line, because it's like, am I even going to be taken seriously? Are they actually going to help me? Are the people around me going to shame me? Like, I feel like when you were telling me earlier about this woman's story, it sounded like, she was dealing with being shamed for being human.
Yeah. And Simone Biles, she was the Olympic gymnast. I mean,
what happened with her? I actually don't know.
She also backed out of the Olympics. Like, she had gone and she had traveled, but she wasn't performing. She dropped out because it was like she had a panic attack. So she dropped. So like July 30th, it was like she's not sure if she'll ever compete again, but she dropped out of the Olympic individual all-around competition in order to prioritize her mental health. And so, yeah, she had dropped out of the team finals after competing in just one of the 4 events. And something happened during that event where it was just like, there was no injury, but it was a mental health issue. And there was like
through the mud too.
Yeah, I mean, just like there is a constant analysis, like, why did she withdraw? Why would she withdraw so late? Like, she was going to win all of these golds. And
how did she not know she was going to have a panic attack? Like, really? That's the whole. And, I also feel like panic attacks aren't taken as seriously, too. It's just like.
And I don't even know if it's exactly a panic attack. I think it's called twisties. That's what the phrase that she said, where she couldn't. It's like, and I think this is something that happens with athletes. When she was doing some performance on the beam, she couldn't literally tell the difference from being what was up and what was down.
Yes.
But that's also happened. Yeah. And she said it was just a combination. It was a combination of mental stress and pressure that attacked her confidence. And, but you have to say this, like, she used that as a platform, or she used that as a launching point to do something good. She ended up backing a mental health startup that I think is based out of Austin, Texas. but yeah, starting then, yeah, she became serving as the face of a brand called Cerebral, which is a mental health.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I do
they
know.
provide.
That's okay. Cause I was gonna say I don't think she partnered with BetterHelp, but I did remember like 'cause Cerebral was something I was mentioned to me by a colleague, and I remember when I clicked on it, I saw Simone Biles like face like
Mm,
somehow like related to it, and I was like, oh, okay, well that's
yeah.
pretty cool. I think that when people, celebrities,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever right they're a celebrity, I feel like when they use their platform to bring more awareness to mental health, it benefits all of us. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter your race, your age, your gender, it benefits. And I was watching and it's not suicide related, but mental health related. I was watching TikTok.
Hey,
It's funny.
great source of news. Second to
Man,
Instagram.
I try to
Yeah.
stay away from TikTok,
No.
not for any
So
negative
serious.
reason, but just because I know myself, and I'll just sit there for hours, and I can't do. I don't have the time for that.
Hey,
But like some of
hey,
my clients will send me like what.
when you're on, make sure you send me something funny. I need to
You shouldn't
laugh.
even said that. You shouldn't even said that because now you're gonna be like, if this girl don't stop sending me TikToks.
Yes.
Well, my clients, they send me like mental health TikToks all the time, and I was watching one of the ones they sent me, and then I started going down a rabbit hole. Ended up on Will Smith, which I really do want to get his book now. I don't know, like I keep hearing really good things about it, and I'm like, I think I really want to get his book. But I was watching one of his TikToks where he was crying, right? And he was talking about, and I'm telling you, like, I know I shouldn't have been smiling at his tears, but I know they weren't tears of like, they were very cathartic tears. They were very like,
Mm.
just I'm releasing this, and I smiled because I was like, yes, yes,
Oh,
please show these men that it is okay to cry, especially these Black men. Please show
yeah.
them that you are a human being. When you are sad, it is okay to cry. When you
Mm-hmm.
are hurt, it is okay to cry. And they would like pan out to the audience and people out there, kind of shedding tears. And he was just talking about like forgiveness and things like that. But like I feel like he is a good advocate for mental health, and saying that like it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. And then like right after that, I saw some memes like of like people making fun of him, like, oh poor Will, or he's crying again, or something like that. And I was like, what?
Well, let's put out some good information about crying really quickly
Mhm.
because like honestly, I see it in the schools. I see what we do to our little boys where it's, "Oh, are you afraid? You need to buck up and take care of business." Really? At 5 years old? At 6 years old? At 7 years old? You need to not show your emotion and get down to business? No, we need to hold a space for people to cry. Um, Here are 9 benefits of crying and why it's good and when to get help. It detoxifies the body, according to Healthline. There are 3 different types of tears: reflex tears, continuous tears, emotional tears. Not only does it clear debris like smoke and dust from your eyes, it continuous tears lubricate your eyes and help protect them from infection. So guys, you don't have to buy that red eye droplets. You can
The
just
fake.
cry. So there's that. It helps self-soothe. There's
Mhm.
a brain activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This system helps your body rest and digest. All of those are good. Crying
Mhm.
dulls pain. Crying for long periods of time releases oxytocin,
Mhm.
which is a good, pleasurable hormone, and
Mhm.
endogenous opioids. otherwise known as endorphins. These feel-good chemicals can help ease both physical and emotional pain. Please, guys, enjoy the drug of tears.
Yes, I mean,
right.
this is why I feel like you just gave us an advertisement for.
I'm not even finished. It improves mood, rally support, helps you recover from grief, restores emotional balance, helps baby breathe, helps baby sleep. Okay, it's normal and healthy.
Yes.
All right, that's it. That's my benefit.
Why do you think it is that after we cry, after we have a really good cry, we just feel good? Like so many people, I don't want to cry. It's just going to make me just fall apart and everything's going to just crash down. But why is it that when you do allow yourself to cry, you feel so damn good afterwards?
Oh, dude.
You just release.
We're going to have to do that, like a little stock photo of somebody crying with a little plug in. Oh, crying feels so good.
Yes, so good. Jen, I don't know. Jen, I'm not sure what advertisement you were doing just then, but that doesn't sound PG.
Dude, whatever it takes for guys to cry.
Crying feels so good.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Like, what is that podcast turning to? What's happening? But honestly, I'm telling you, like, I was can't remember if I shared this with you or not, but like there was this campaign I saw online. I was like, I have to get my kids those sweatshirts, but it was like, it said boys get sad too. And like it was for men, boys, whatever. But I mean, I was just like, it resonated with me because I'm just like, I know my boys get really tired of hearing me say, how are you feeling? It's okay to be sad. Share your feelings. Tell me what's going on. I'm like, I don't care if they get tired of me saying it because outside of me, society tells them the opposite. And I'm like, if I can like be that, little needling thing in their ear, constantly telling them that it's okay, then I will. But I remember seeing that sweatshirt and I was like, yes, like we need more men to jump on this bandwagon, to advocate and say, hey, we get sad. And it's okay to be sad and it's okay to talk about those problems. What's not okay is to sit in your room feeling hopeless and helpless, pick up a gun or a rope or whatever it is, a weapon, and take your own life. That's not okay. Ask
never okay.
for help. Get support. Like, and if you know that there are people in your life who will laugh, who won't be supportive, don't reach out to them. Go to someone else that you know is going to listen, is going to hear you. I do want to say,
thank you for that. I want to pass a collection plate.
Stop.
But seriously, and also, I hope you.
Thank you so
Listen, I hope you shared the TikTok video with your boys of Will Smith crying.
You know what? I did not, but I will. I mean, because like I said, I'm constantly like, cry. You better cry it out.
Guess what? Just send it to them. It'll be hilarious. Your boys will be like, oh, I'm crying and it's so beautiful. And I owe it all to Will Smith. And you'll be like, what? You'll be like, what? I've been telling you for years.
I have to tell you, man, like I try to give my kids their individuality, their space and everything like that. But I do like to know like what's going on with their friends, And I found out that like one of his friends at school, my oldest, who's 13, about to be 14, he was sending them messages, and the messages, I just felt like as a parent and as a therapist were just... I wasn't sure if the kid was kidding, if this is just how he always talks, but it hit me hard. And the kid was just like saying things like, this was after like some girl wouldn't like return his calls or something like that. And he was like, I hate my life. You know, I just want to go kill myself. I'm miserable all the time. And, you know, I hate this life. I hate it. You know, she's never going to talk to me. And, you know, I feel like I have, what did he say? I feel like I have bipolar. I don't know where a 13-year-old is hearing all this stuff or, you
Dude,
know,
it's
whatever.
everywhere.
But I noticed that my son did not, he didn't say like, I don't think he knew it, to be honest with you. I don't think he knew, because that's a lot on another kid. Like
Yeah.
hearing that, you're like, what do I do with that? How do I?
Yeah.
And
I
so
wouldn't
my
have
kid,
known as a 13-year-old.
no. So my kid uses humor, and he's like, and there was something the kid had said, and my son was like, well, at least you didn't such and such and such. So there's something positive in your life and what's going on right now. And the kid
Yeah.
was like, I guess.
Hmm.
I guess whatever. And then the kid went into something about like the girl again. But I was just like,
Does your
that's a
son
lot
know
of
that?
heaviness.
Wait a second. Does your son know that you know?
No, but but
Okay.
I reached out to his dad and I was like, hey, you know, because
Oh,
he knows
good.
you know, that he, you know, but I was just like, hey, can you talk to him this weekend and like just, you know, talk to him about men and how it's okay to talk about your feelings and to share your feelings. And that if someone comes to you about their feelings, you know, it's okay for you to be supportive, but to find a way not to take that into yourself. Because I think that's the other thing I was worried about. It's like, if
Hmm.
you're constantly hearing your peers talk about suicide and all that, like I had a new client come in and she was saying that when she was younger, she started self-harming because one of her peers said, oh, well, if you're depressed, you should be self-harming. If you're not self-harming, then you're not really depressed. And she was like, after that, she started self-harming. I was like, that's the thing, like the peers have so much influence at this stage. And it's like, if your peers are saying, oh, I'm going to kill myself. Oh, I want to harm myself. Like you're thinking, oh, well, I'm depressed too. So maybe I should be thinking about killing myself. Like you'd be surprised the power of suggestion
Yeah,
at that age.
absolutely. And then that's also like the person who feels depressed wants to be taken seriously.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
somebody, it's like, and if they're setting the bar, well, nobody's going to take you seriously.
Exactly.
That's not hard. Self is not the definition of depression.
Mhm. Nope.
And I know that
But
people
she didn't know
panic.
that then. You know what I mean? She
Yeah.
didn't have anybody to say, hey, you know, to come behind that.
What do we do? Do we have suicide prevention tips or suicide assessment? Like, do you want your son
So,
to have the questions to ask? Like, have you made a plan?
well,
How
I told
serious
him,
are you?
you know, I told, you know, his dad to tell him, like, you know, it's because that's too heavy for him. So
Hmm.
then he needs to talk to someone who is, you know, who can help. You know, if you really feel like your friend's going to harm himself, maybe you need to talk to someone at your school, you know, or,
Hmm.
you know, I don't know, like another, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just felt like it wasn't a good idea to just, but in this situation, I will say, you know, based off of what I know, the kid says it on a continuous basis. I don't know
Yeah.
why, which goes into that whole thing about, you know, people not taking things like that seriously because it's said
Yeah.
over and over again by
It's
maybe by that particular person, by, you know,
now
whomever.
it's just
Um,
used. Now it's just used like death and killing is used as kind
mhm,
of an aside,
mhm.
um, just as an exclamation,
Yes,
like
like
my
crap.
nine-year-old.
This sucks.
Yeah, instead of yeah, like my 9-year-old's like, "Oh, I want to kill myself," just as
Yeah.
an exclamation, and it's like, "Excuse
Mhm.
me, what?"
Right? They don't know, as mental health professionals, that's the worst thing you can say around me. Like, don't even play like that. Yeah, my third,
Yeah.
like he was like lost his AirPods. He was like, God, I hate my life. I suck. Like everything just sucks. I just want to
Oh,
kill
and you're
myself.
like,
And I was like,
that's an inner critic.
I was like, let's sit down for a minute. Let's process through what you're feeling right now. Let's talk about, I was like, because if you are truly having feelings and thoughts that you want to harm yourself or kill yourself, we need to address this. And he's like, what? What are you talking about,
I
Mom?
love it. I love
I
it.
didn't even
He's like,
say
can you
that.
just
And I was
He's like,
like,
can you just
yes,
help
you
me? He's
did.
like, can you just help me find my AirPods and not go
Right?
through protests?
I was like, yeah, you did say it. We can talk. Sit on down. We can have a talk. That's like a talk. And he was like, no, man, come on. No, I'm never going to say it again. I'm not gonna.
Dude, that
And he
sounds
never did. And he
dude,
never did.
you guys should do a TikTok video of like life with a therapist mom and be like, oh.
Right. But I'm hoping that he got that. Like, I was
Yeah.
telling his dad, like, just to please let him know, like, hey, if you feel like your friend is ever gonna really, is ever gonna harm themselves, like, talk to the school counselor, talk to a teacher, someone of authority, because I would imagine like he doesn't have access to the kid's parents.
Yeah.
And I think he got that.
Yeah.
But so some risk factors associated with suicide among adolescents include psychiatric disorders, such as major depressive disorder, bipolar, substance use, and conduct disorders, psychiatric comorbidity, especially the combination of mood, disruptive, and substance abuse disorders, a family history of depression or suicide, loss of a parent to death or divorce, physical and or sexual abuse, lack of a support network, feelings of social isolation, and bullying.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the major risk factors associated that they have found associated with suicide among adolescents.
I also saw and this was, and maybe it depends on right, but this is maybe another risk factor. This was on healthnewyork.gov.
Mm-hmm.
Incarceration, time in prison. Coping with being gay, homosexuality in an unsupportive family, community, or hostile school environment.
Mm-hmm. And even though they don't list, being gay, lesbian, or bisexual as a risk factor, because I work with a lot of people in the LGBTQ community, and that's one thing they cannot stand. It's like, don't try to, put any of my mental health stuff on my, on my sexual identity. Like, don't do that. So one thing that, I like that they separate, they were saying that they're not saying that it's a risk factor that you are gay, lesbian, or bisexual, but that they have found that suicide attempts are higher among students who did identify that way as compared to people who identify as homosexual. And I think that it's good to mention what you just said about being in an unsupportive,
hostile.
Yes, unsupportive. Because like if you are constantly getting that message that it's not okay to be who you are, then that that just makes you start to feel like, what's the point?
If you have no one to turn to, if you have no adult that understands, if you have no one to talk to without feeling judged, and you don't have anyone that's representative of you, then that's the key. And that happens across the board. I think the article that you sent me of the little boy, the 10-year-old in Alabama, was being bullied at school. He was in a hostile environment. And it was like because he was a dancer, because he was a boy and he enjoyed dancing. And also because he was dark skinned, he was telling his mom, like, why, like, I don't look like you and my brother. I'm darker than them and I have a big head. And, these are things that people take for granted.
He was questioning his worth as a human being because of the color of his skin.
And the things that brought him joy. And then he stopped doing that and isolating himself. And
I will say that, like, okay, so there are some warning signs, but before I go through that, I do want to talk about like the fact that research has shown that youth suicide is preventable. And I will say that again. Youth suicide is preventable. And the efforts have to be aimed at all levels of influence. That is the individual themselves, their relationships, community, and society as a whole.
Can you say that one more time?
Yes. Prevention efforts should be aimed at all levels of influence, including the individual, their relationships, and we're talking about family relationships, friendships, all of that, community and society as a whole. And they were saying that, like, knowing the signs, here's the thing. They said that 4 out of 5 suicide deaths are preceded by warning signs. That means there are signs, there are things that they are saying and doing and behaviors and, facial expressions. There are signs,
Yeah.
they are not just 4 out of 5 kids are not just up and just committing suicide without there being any type of warning sign. And the warning signs have been suicidal threats, previous suicide attempts, preoccupation or obsession with death, depression, and final arrangements. And I will say this, like, I feel like sometimes like that may be overlooked, but like if you see your kids starting to give away things that you're like, wait a minute now, like they love that, like why are they giving it? And they're like, oh, I just outgrew it, or oh, but they were just using it last week. That's a huge red flag, because they are giving away things and making final arrangements, making
Another
it more.
one that I saw.
Go ahead.
I know. Searching for and trying to obtain weapons, pills, or other means to take their
There you
own
go.
life.
I was literally about to say that.
What?
Yes.
I know that maybe kids aren't always asking their parents. Maybe they are. Maybe they are asking their dads or friends for guns. But listen, friends out there, if your friend is asking for a large amount of pills, ask the question.
Ask why.
Yes. What are you going to use this for? Yeah.
And maybe just don't give it to them. Like, especially if you've seen some signs, some warning signs. Like,
and you can tell them straight out. It's better not to go behind their back and say, hey, I care for you. I don't want to lose you. And your behavior or your ideas are, I don't condone snitching, but I will tell an adult if you are threatening to harm yourself. That's it. That's a boundary, and that's a fine boundary to set in your friendships, especially for parents to kids. But I'm just talking to, teens and adolescents.
We as a society, we need to make it more difficult for kids to be able to die in an act of deliberate self-harm. And one thing I read, they were saying even like building some type of like barrier on bridges to prevent, like, I feel like bridges are just way too, I was like, wait, that's so easy for someone to jump off of that bridge to their death. Like, why aren't they putting things and barriers and things in place to make sure that doesn't happen? Removing guns from homes with at-risk youth. Now, I'm not
Or keeping it locked up. Keep it locked up in a safe. Don't give them the code.
And I'm
not
going to sit here and say how you should protect your home. Like, if you feel like you want to keep a gun in your home, okay, but why make it in any way, shape, or form accessible to your kid? Like, make it the most difficult thing they would ever have to do. Like, put it in the attic, put it in the attic, have it in the safe, and in that safe, have it in a gun safe, and in that gun safe, have another gun safe, and then keep the bullets separate from the gun. Like, make it extremely difficult. And I get that, like, okay, if that's the case, then how are you going to access it? If
No.
one that breaks,
There are people that are responsible. Listen, I strongly believe in gun safety. I am okay with guns. I don't have one in my house, but I've talked to many of people who train other people, who have been in the military, who do trainings, and they might have it in a car, but it is responsible. It is in a safe. It is locked up, where it's like a fingerprint, like a fingerprint scanner for only you to unlock it. Be responsible. It's a weapon. It can be a weapon and it can be abused. And so treat it with the respect that it deserves. And
I think I've had like people say like, oh, well, I teach my kid gun safety, so I show them how to shoot it. I show them about the safety, I show them that I taught them about, how to use a gun and when it's appropriate and not appropriate, all these different things. And I'm like, okay, that's understandable. And that's what you choose as a parent. But you have to ask yourself, what happens when my child is depressed and feeling hopeless and helpless and something crosses their mind and they remember, hey, there's a gun that's accessible to me. I don't want to be here anymore. I know that's my means to an end. Let me go. And so that's why I think they make a point of saying removing the guns from your homes.
From the home.
But they say with at-risk youth. That means like if you own a gun and you start to notice that my kid is depressed and they have said some statements of hopelessness or helplessness, let me just go ahead and let me remove knives. Let me remove like anything that I think that they could possibly use to harm themselves. Just long enough while they're working through, their therapy, whatever have you, support groups, whatever it is that they are using to be able to heal. Why not remove those items?
Absolutely. Your child's life is worth it.
Also, they talk about improving access to mental health resources. And that's why this is important for our society at large. Like, I feel like I did say I was going to talk a little bit about global stuff, and I guess this kind of goes into that.
I don't think we have time. Yeah.
But mental health resources, right? I've like it's very privatized here. In the UK, in England, they have the NHS and they have access to mental health resources for free, which I think is fantastic. But at the same time, every single person that I've talked to has said the wait is 6 months.
Yes.
The wait is so long. And it's like, okay, you're giving them access, but you're still not giving them access. Like if someone is suicidal and they need help right away, then how do they get therapy? This is so important. So improving access to mental health resources, that includes medical interventions. Like I think it's important for a lot of our general physicians to be trained in this, be knowledgeable and know like the warning signs and what to look for so that they can help, in any way they can, send them to the right place, like a therapist or a support group, whatever have you. Effective like clinical care for mental health disorders, and then family and community support. Extremely important. I know they have like youth.gov has a lot of helpful information, tips. Of course, I'm hoping that most people have heard of the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 1-800-273-TALK, TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And it is 24/7. It's confidential support.
There's also crisis text line. and you text START to 741-741.
Before we go, I do want to talk about the common signs: increased anxiety, unnecessary risk taking, feeling trapped or in unbearable pain, lack of response to praise, looking for a way to access lethal means, increased anger, rage, or irritability, extreme mood swings, problems focusing, running away, expressing hopelessness, changes in eating or sleeping, changes in eating and sleeping habits that result in sleeping too little or too much, or eating too little or too much, talking, posting on social media, or obsessing about death or wanting to die, making plans for suicide. More physical complaints often linked to emotional distress like stomach aches, headaches, extreme tiredness, making plans or efforts toward committing suicide or writing a suicide note. And then what we talked about earlier, giving or throwing away important favored possessions. Again, youth.gov has some excellent, resources. Just, I just want to say this before we go. Like, we know our kids. If you see changes in behavior, if you see, any inkling of sadness, talk to your kids. Ask them, what's going on? What are you feeling? What do you need from me? That's how I went in. Just talk.
This has been absolutely.
Communicate.
Yeah.
Thank
you for sharing this. I don't. Just thank you. I'm glad that we did this. It raised awareness for me because, I don't hear enough people talking about it in my community and really getting into detail. And so I'm honored to be a part of this podcast to talk about this and to hopefully put some more information out there for people. So
yes. I appreciate you, cuz I'm gonna leave it there. Honestly, there's so much more I could say, but we're
gonna have, guess what? It'll be suicide and mental health part 2.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Back,
so
yeah, just in the interest of time.
And we haven't even talked about personal stuff because, like, honestly, I don't know anyone who doesn't know anyone who hasn't attempted at least or lost a friend or family member. So this is to be continued, but please ask for help, like Doris said.
Yeah. And just
Good
take
night.
care of yourselves out there. Bye.
Yeah.